I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
What's up everybody, I am Mike and today I'm gonna show you how to paint this Batman Gotham by Gaslight statue. This statue has been released by a Japanese company known as Kotobukiya, and as I just mentioned, it is based on Gotham by Gaslight. Which is basically like regular old Batman, only that Gotham has no electricity and it resembles Victorian era London. And if you don't like reading comic books, there's even a cool animated movie about it. I do however really recommend the comic book. It has a pretty cool take on the Joker, who has a permanent rictus grin stuck on his face. Now let's get to it. Here you can see what Batman looked like before and after. Definitely not a bad paint job, but for today we want to get rid of this comic book look and make him look a bit more realistic and dark and gritty with a classic black cape. Now for that you're gonna be using a lot of acrylic paint. Just ask me about it in the comments if you have questions. Now for step 1 you're gonna be start with a base coat. For that you'll be needing black paint and a thick brush. Now mix the paint with water and add a little bit of blue. And of course add some white until you have a nice dark blue-gray color. Now use that and paint the entire scalp. Don't forget the rocks at the bottom and on top. Now for step 2 take some black paint and this time add a lot of water. This will help us create ink, and for now just let the black ink sink in. Okay, here we go. Step 3, dry brushing. Just use a small amount of paint and this way you will cover only the raised areas of the sculpt. And step 4, just repeat the same with a much brighter coat. This will easily create highlights, and after a couple of layers with brighter paint you should be done. Okay, now for step 5 you'll be using brown paint to cover all the wood. Use the remaining brown paint and mix some brown ink. Now you just gotta ink those rocks and let the paint sink in. Step 6, here we go, dry brushing with white. Now you'll almost want next to no paint at all on your brush. And this way you will give the sculpt even more highlights. Just be careful not to overdo it, and coming up next I'm gonna teach you all about pastel chalk. This will give us softer shadows. Now start with some brighter highlights by using some bright yellow or brown, and then slowly but surely add darker pastels, like brown and black. Now the thing about pastel is, it doesn't automatically just stick to the surface. So if you paint, be careful and don't touch the sculpt. So in order to keep it safe, just remember to spray this on. Now the reason you clicked. Doing the same stuff but this time with Batman. So for step 1 start by giving Batman a dark grey base coat and then bathe him entirely in black ink. And while you're doing this, remember to also ink his belt and gadgets. Now for step 2 you'll be mixing a medium shade of grey for the suit And with that we'll be painting the entire suit. Now before you paint, be careful and wipe off most of the paint from your brush, and then carefully dry brush the entire suit. In this case, it's easier to just start with the legs and then slowly but surely continue up his body. And after a couple of layers, you should be done. Now for step 3, just mix in a little bit more white, and with that we'll be adding more detail with a brighter coat. Now finish dry brushing the torso and mix in even more white. And with each layer you will slowly make him brighter. Now slowly but surely make Batman a little bit brighter each time. There we go, looks much better than before. And while you're doing this, you'll be using a little bit less paint with each consecutive layer. And this will give the suit a lot more texture. So get in as much definition as you want. Until you basically have a nice rugged texture. There we go, that looks much better than before, a lot more detailed, and you can basically see the entire muscle definition. Now step 4, it's time to paint the logo, and once you're done with that, remember to also paint all the details on his belt. And while we are painting, it's also handy to keep a scalpel ready to remove any and all dust. And obviously don't forget to use a small brush. Now for step 5, mix in some yellow and add some highlights to the edges. Now just keep adding a little bit more yellow and then carefully dry brush the entire belt. Next up, get some silver paint, and it's time to paint those metal details, like the buckle and the buttons. This might be a little bit more difficult, so just rest your fingers if you're painting those tiny spots. And just do the same for his throwing knives and you should be good. Now for step 6, you'll be dry brushing Batman's cape with dark brown. This will make it look a bit more like leather. Imagine running around in a leather cape. You couldn't even climb, let alone fight people. Now also give his boots some more detail. And dry brush his gloves as well. It's time again for pastel chalk. Before you paint, don't forget to seal. And just like with the base before, add some highlights and shadows with pastel chalk. And while you're at it, remember to like and subscribe to see even more tutorials. And also comment your favorite Batsuit down below, I'm actually curious about it. And while you're down there, what toy do you want to see me paint next? Okay, step 8. Now the real deal, it's time to paint Batman's face. Start by mixing a light skin tone. You'll be using skin colored pastel and some light brown mixed together with white acrylics. Now let's just add a little bit more yellow and now start by painting a light base coat. I know this sucks, but it's always better to do 2 or 3 thin layers. One thick layer will always look like trash. And I had to redo this too multiple times, so it's okay. Now carefully also paint his eyes with some green and also add some black and white. And then it's time again for pastel chalk. Put some red pastel on his lips. Then scratch down even more pastel, and while you're at it, remember to always keep a clean surface. Now use the smallest brush you have for those tiny spots and carefully add some dark and light brown. Don't overdo it or you'll get paint spots. And if you mess up, you'll basically have to start again. Because remember, pastel will always get darker and only acrylics can get brighter. Also yell at me on Twitter at Workbench Mike. Now here comes the final step 10. Just put some gloss varnish on his eyes and you're done. Damn Batman, you looking good! Alright, oh, and remember to spray this on, otherwise the paint won't stick to your surface, so just do it unless you want the paint to chip. Now what toys do you want to see me paint next? Comment your ideas down below and follow me on social media for updates. Now thanks for watching.
Now go and fight crime.